My guest today is Joe Bogardus, a financial service executive and financial planner at Barnum Financial Group. Joe provides top-notch service for his clients, including asset allocation, retirement planning, and tax saving strategies, and more. He joins me today to talk about his career path that brought him to Barnum, the lessons he's learned on his journey, and his outlook on the future of this industry. I'm Paul Blanco, and this is Small Steps, Big Wins. Well, Joe Bogardus, welcome to Small Steps, Big Wins. I'm so happy to have you here today, and it's been so fun watching your journey here at Barnum from a new advisor, solo practitioner, to obviously a team, but to one of the top producers, and you're probably in the top 1% of the industry right now. And the saying I always say is, I know you've just gotten started. So welcome to the show today.
Thank you, Paul.
My pleasure. So I guess I want to jump right in and just, how did you end up in the financial service industry, and what brought you to it, and how did that happen?
I think a little bit of luck. I thought when I was coming out of high school, I wanted to be a doctor. Then I quickly realized I didn't really enjoy science. So I decided to go into finance. I went to school at University of Richmond, and they call it finance, not finance. So I understood and really liked the economic part of school and kind of gravitated towards that. And then, luck behold, 2008 came, graduation came, and there was no finance industry at that time. I had a couple internships in Wall Street right before that, and I had thought I was going to be doing something with one of the big Wall Street firms. And I was at a dinner party my senior year in college, and one of my neighbors said, "Hey, there's this gentleman, John Billington, who is looking to potentially have a junior partner at some point. You should meet him." And I had known John and his family growing up, and one thing led to another. His daughter had also attended University of Richmond, and we had a couple conversations. I was very motivated at the time, and still am, and decided to take on financial services as a career choice of mine. Went into it like kind of blue in the face, didn't really know much about the industry at all, just knew I liked to sell and be motivated and kind of make my own name for myself. I wasn't someone that wanted to work for a company. I wanted to work for myself. And because my father growing up, he's a small business owner, mechanic, mother's a nurse, everyone always worked in my household. So had no other opportunity but to go out and try to make my own name for myself.
It's amazing. And for the listeners on the show today, John Billington is a top producer in the industry, probably 40 years in the business. As we get into it later, Joe, in the future, later on into that, really formally teamed with John, and we'll get to that later. But when everyone starts, there's I call it, some people say it's a turning point, but I say it clicks, meaning you wake up one day and you say, hey, this is my career. Because in the beginning, you might be nervous and you're not sure.
Right.
Was there a time that happened? Is this something that you could reflect back on, or was, did it just, you got in and just took off and you felt like this was mine?
Definitely did not take off. It was a slow grind. I remember coming to your office early on and saying, I remember the line that Tom Brady said, "Hey, this is going to be the best decision." I don't know if you remember that.
I do.
When I came in, I had contemplated quitting this job quite a few times. My father reminded me, Bogarduses are not quitters. So we don't quit. We may fail, but that doesn't mean you stop and you just keep on plugging along. So I grinded out very hard. I think I was remembering, I'm trying to, now that I have a team, and talk to the young guys about putting hard work and effort into things. And you have to put time and effort into it. This is not a 9-to-5 job. It is not. And especially in the first probably 5 to 7 years of your career, it's really a 7-day-a-week job, because Monday through Friday, you're working. Saturday, you're doing work on the phones and dialing. And then Sunday should be the day where you're studying, getting your licenses, getting those things that you need to be prepared, professionally to take that next step in your career. So I enjoyed, the studying aspect of my just journey. I think it was actually very, very important for me to understand all these things because there's such a high learning curve in this business. You need to know a lot.
I believe you have 4 different designations, correct?
Possibly 5. But yes. I mean, and you just get it done. Testing came a little bit easy to me with these things. So it was something that I just needed to do and just kind of challenge myself and get it done. I remember a week before I was hired, Joe Lopresti was, I remember when we were getting in the hiring class, you were encouraging everyone to get their Series 6 and their life and health. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to take the 7. My college roommate at the time was taking his 7. And we were kind of like challenging each other. He ended up getting a 97 percentile on his test. That's like only 4 questions wrong. I did well on it myself, but not that great. And then I'm a week away from getting, starting into this class. And Joe Lopresti, my manager, goes, "Hey, Joe, you're a smart kid. Why don't you take your property and casualty license?" I'm like, I only have 4 days to study. Got it done.
Nice.
Got it done and just did it. Probably don't use that much. Give that to the PNC people here. And then, slowly chug away at the little designations. The certified financial planner, the CFP designation, is probably by far one of the best things just to understand this business. Yeah. And I highly encourage young people and anyone in this industry, if you want to be able to help people, you need to know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And I think that's, one of the things I was very impressed with you as a young man coming into this business was that the level of discipline, what you just talked about, the 5 days where you're meeting and calling, and then Saturdays cleaning up and doing some of that stuff, and then Sunday studying. And that's a huge commitment. And I think growing up in a household, we always talk about Barnum in this industry of being business for yourself, but not by yourself, right. Where, your dad had to go out and everything was on his own. Right. You were able to leverage resources that he wasn't able to, or any small business owner, and have the combination of having your own business, but having people that are there to support and help you. So I think that's a big paradigm shift when you're thinking totally as a business owner, right? When did you really decide, like, all right, I'm doing this, I'm here now, I need to really formally team? And how fast did that happen? And then I know the teaming part started slow and then it progressively grew.
Right. I think I've been in this industry now, this will be my 15th year, I think. And I would say probably around year 4 or 5, I'd met, there was 3 influential people to start in my career: John Billington, Harvey Silverman, and John Pearson. I was very fortunate. I'll chuckle a little bit with the old guys, right? They're all in their 70s. Harvey's in his mid 80s at this point. And I gravitated towards them because they had a, wealth of knowledge. John Pearson's a CPA. John Billington was one of the top wealth advisors and still is, CFP, and Harvey's just an old school, teach you the way to sell. And I think that's something that's missed today. So I had always worked with them informally. I still remember Harvey yelling at me. He is a Marine, so I should say once a Marine, always a Marine. He corrected me when I came into the office one day with frayed pants and non-polished shoes. And he said, "Leave, come home, come back when you're ready." And he set the tone, to the point where when you're pointing at something, don't point with your fingernails. You curl up your nails and you point with a pen. Today, we're in a world where it's Zoom oriented, and I love it. Don't get me wrong, but face-to-face selling is something really, really important. Be able to sitting belly to belly with someone and being able to make that sale. And that translates into a better advisor, I think. So learning the skills, and then eventually John Billington had an individual on his team. He had an assistant. I kind of came in as a junior partner role-ish. We kind of tested each other out. Teaming was kind of a new thing. There was no teams really at that time, maybe a couple partnerships really.
It was mostly joint work.
Joint work. And that's how we started. Everyone started as joint work. And then it was probably not until about 7-8 years ago, so halfway through my career, where John and I were like, listen, let's put something formal together here. I like working with you. And we just started to fill out an agreement to say, hey, I did a certain amount of thing. You get a certain piece of this business, and vice versa. Harvey came along as well. And then I had John Pearson on the side. We built a pretty successful college business, because one of the things in this business, you need to have multiple buckets and resources. You can't be relying on just one thing. You can't just be relying on transitional planning or corporate education. So I had to build out revenue sources, because the more legs to a stool, if one falls out, you're going to still be in this business.
Yep.
So,
so you listened to that stuff in the beginning of your career.
Yeah.
That's good.
Even different books of sources, 401k business, something that goes unnoticed today. It's a big opportunity, some big plans. So, trying to, I think from John and John, the two Johns, seminar selling was their strength. And if you can get in front of people on a favorable basis, you're going to be able to make some sales.
Yeah. So let's go into the college planning a little bit.
Sure.
So you started working with John Pearson, say midway through your early part of your career.
Second year in the business. Yep.
And where is that business today? And give me a little overview of what it is.
So college planning started, we used to have when we came into this business, like a rookie shadowing where you'd have top producers come in and talk a little bit about their business. And I was intrigued by this whole college thing. And I said, so John had created a workshop where he only had 1 or 2 high schools where he was teaching these things. And I'm like, geez, this seems like a pretty interesting, fun thing that I can get my hands around. So John and I partnered up and we went year 2, we went into, I think had like 6 workshops, and then from 6 turned into 20, and then 20 turned into 40. And then we started bringing in a couple other people. So right now, for the last about 10 years, we've been running about 30 to 50 workshops. So in September to November, we're doing 1 to 2 workshops. Now, before COVID, we could only do 1 workshop a night. Now with Zoom, we can do 2 a night. It's corporate education in its essence, where you're providing really good information on the financial side of things. There's only a few times in people's lives where money is really important. Buying a house, starting a family, sending your kid to college. I mean, I can't tell you how often I'm talking to people in their 40s and 50s, which by the way, or even 60s, which by the way, is the perfect time for people. They've already started to build their wealth. They're a little bit better off. There's big financial decisions to be made. And where else is there a person that's going to be able to step in and kind of talk to them about those decisions? So I entrenched myself in understanding that process. And the opportunity is this. So we sit in front of, let's just say 40 high schools. I'll give you some statistics from last year. 40 high schools. We got in front of 5,000 people, which we've gathered all their emails and data on. And we got, I think, 750 one-on-one requests. Wow. Now, you can't, I will tell you the numbers seem great, and they are. The large majority of those people, and I feel it's important for us to at least sit down with every single person, just like in corporate ed. A lot of that business is to answer some basic questions. You help them and you move on. There's not a lot of opportunity. So it's that 1/3 rule. Every 3 people you meet, there's going to be some sort of opportunity. What that opportunity is, you don't know.
It's very diverse, right?
Diverse.
You don't know. They're all coming from different walks of life.
Different walks of life. Could be rollover IRAs, some insurance sales, financial planning is a big thing of it. And you're just helping people. And I have a business that's sustainable, that if any of those stools ever fall out, I'm still going to be able to see people. I'm going to have my calendar filled. So it just gives those opportunities. I love it.
So let's unbundle that a little bit. So you started with John, and then you talked about, going from 6 workshops to 40. And there's a big word in the business world today it's been around forever, but it's like in vogue today. It's called scale, right? And teaming is one way to scale. And it sounds like today in college planning and as a day-to-day, you've scaled this team to have multiple people that can help you with lots of different things. So why don't you give me like a high level overview? What's the team look like today?
So we now have 6 partners on the team, 6 junior advisors, and then 8 full-time staff people.
So 6 producers that are partners, 6 producers that are juniors on the team. So 12 total advisors.
Correct.
And 8 staff?
8 staff.
Great.
And you asked the question about scale. So how do we do it? So the way we do it is a little bit different, I think, from some individuals or even teams. Is we take the mentality of not the me mentality, it's the we mentality, right? So what we'll do is we'll book a venue, whether it's corporate ed or even college, and we'll just schedule it out. So we make it easy for, I'll use corporate ed as an example, make it easy for the corporate ed team to schedule. They don't need to ask us, hey, can you do this date or not? They'll book it. Just do it.
Because someone on the team can handle it.
Someone on the team can handle it. So every Monday we meet as a partnership. We go through the week ahead and we decide, all right, who's teaching this workshop? Now, obviously, if there's some unique ones like tax workshops, we have 2 CPAs on our team. Those are the individuals that should be teaching that workshop.
Fair.
And so we'll make sure those are the unique cases. And, corporate ed knows that. College, same realm. So we'll decide who's teaching what based on availability, health, time, commitments, etc. But we know, I think, from our family time, it's kind of like tax season. From mid-September to November, all nights are busy. I'm working crazy hours and even some Saturdays now as well, just because of the commitment you have to make in that, 12-week period of time.
And for the listeners, Joe, that maybe don't understand some of the language, can you give them just a 2-second overview of what corporate ed is?
Yep. Corporate education is seminar selling. So it is an opportunity we have with Metropolitan MetLife, where MetLife and Barnum formed a relationship, 20 years ago, I believe, where they saw an opportunity that where can we meet people on a favorable basis, not outside of work hours? And MetLife, they have a tremendous book of business. And in order to provide some sort of ancillary benefits to just say, we sell group life insurance or dental or legal, we also provide financial education. Yep. And so you have to go through a rigorous training. You have to be very conscientious. This is MetLife's client, not your client. And you have to support that relationship. And you can't be solicitive. You have to be professional, educational, and you can't come into it with an understanding that this is for you. It's not. This is MetLife's client. I always say, think of this as you getting an opportunity. This is your opportunity to try your best, help someone out, and then good things happen. I'm a big believer in karma. You do the right thing by people recognize that, and then the world kind of, corrects itself over the course of time.
Yeah, and like I like what you said for the people listening here today. Think about it. He already touched on really 3, maybe 4 initiatives. He has corporate education going into the Fortune 500 companies and teaching. He has college planning, which he's doing in the high schools. He said transitional planning, which is a program called Transition Solutions, where he's meeting people that are leaving companies for one reason or another. Mm-hmm. And then you also talked about what you said was books of businesses. And when you said earlier, you talked about 3 of your partners that are in their plus 70s plus, where you and your team are helping them with their B's and C clients and helping service them. So when you think of your stool, you have 4 legs to it already right there. And there's probably so many more with referrals and others. So pretty awesome. So let's go backwards though for a second. I know you said in the beginning that you maybe quit a couple of times. I always tell people my first year, I probably quit 3 times, always on Thursday too. It was always Thursday night when I was having a tough week and I knew I had to report my numbers on Friday. And my mother was just like your dad. She was like, don't be soft, like move on. You're going to be fine.
My father, to this day, I call him every morning. He said, how much money you make today? It's a 30-second conversation. All right.
And that's nice. It's nice to hear that. And I heard a lot of stories about your dad and I like hearing those. But what was some of the challenges you experienced, in the middle of your career, or the early part of your career that, you look back and you say, wow, it was hard, but it's not as hard as I thought. Was there anything that came to you?
Great question. Everything's difficult in this business. There's not a single thing that's easy. And challenges are there every single day. And in fact, when technology gets better, things get harder, right? We dealt with some issues internally with some of the programs that are changing on the insurance platforms that took our team back a little bit, but we're trying to figure it out. So I think it's more of a question of how do you face adversity more than anything. You're always going to face it, and you're going to moan and complain. That's natural, normal, maybe even sometimes get angry, but you got to figure out a solution. And
my always won too.
Yeah. My high school coach said, winners find solutions, losers find excuses.
Yep.
It's a big deal. And so to answer your question, I think just getting in front of people, it took time for it's like a slow drip. It takes time to build this business. There's 20 other advisors that are doing more business right now. There's probably 5 that I'm I don't want to say I'm gunning for it because I think they're going to continue to grow even bigger, but I'd like to get to that platform and I think I can. So there's hurdles. So I question to myself, I go, what do I need to do today to get me there? And I think there was a seminar or something, a resource here at Barnum that mentioned there's going to be times where you hit roadblocks. How do you get from one level to the next? And there's always a roadblock. One of those things being staff. Yeah. How do you get the proper staff in place that work together and expand upon that? As luck had it, the other day I was on a phone call with a prospect from transitional planning. It was an advisor, retired advisor, didn't do any life insurance planning, worth, I think, $30 or $40 million. So you never know who you're going to talk to.
Sure.
And we were just, BSing on the phone. And he was saying, one of his challenges was to grow his business was, you never thought you're going to be a business owner. I can sell and talk to people, but how do you build a business like a doctor's office?
Yep.
That's the key, I think, and doing just the patient to patient stuff. And how do you get rid of, the minutia, the inner voice? And it's tough because you have to focus on that. So in the beginning of your career, you're really focused on that other stuff and you're not in the $500 an hour production stuff.
Well, it's interesting. And to your point, you used the word entrepreneur earlier, right? But if you think about it, you're correct. You get in here, and as you said earlier, you have to study, learn, figure out how to get clients and build a book.
Right.
Then you do that. And then we say to you, okay, now you have to switch from listening to us as an entrepreneur to be a business owner. Now you need staff so you can do that, maybe a junior or two.
Yeah.
Then you go to the next step where you become an entrepreneur. Now you're managing a whole team, a P&L and all that. And then the next step is, and you're at that break point now where you become the CEO of this business.
And it's so challenging.
Yeah. But that's the great part about it. And the cool thing, I think, Joe, is it's a staircase. Right. It's not a line. If I was drawing here, and you can't forget the things you did at the bottom of the stair that got you to the next step, and this next step. And too many people, that's where they don't break through. And I call that the ceiling of complexity. When you get stuck at it and you have to look backwards, forward, present, and then figure it out. And people always do, like you, that are truly entrepreneurs.
Right. And then you have to say, how big is the staircase, right? You say you get to the CEO, but then you're saying, all right, is this truly the CEO, or am I back at square one? And how do I make it even bigger?
100%.
Look at yourself. When you started, you had, only a few people, right, and you built an empire. And this is not the stopping point.
No, it's not. And it's interesting. I tell people all day, I've been leading this firm, fortunately, for 31 years.
Right.
And I've had the same title, but my role's been different for 31 straight years. And you create that yourself. So all of you that are sitting here, don't stop dreaming big. But you have to, what Joe has done really well, and as you're listening, is his level of execution, not only on the big stuff, but on the details, has helped you get to where you are in a very short period of time. It's interesting. Over the last maybe 10 or 15 shows that we've done, there's probably about 7 or 8 people that came in that 07, 08. It's kind of interesting because that was a tough time.
Really tough.
And I think every one of them has done amazing. So you should be really proud of yourself. I'm super proud of you.
Thank you.
Let's talk about, I'm pretty big on, being that complete person. And there was a great quote from, Vince Lombardi, the great football coach, was getting interviewed. And they said to him, how do you create such great football players? And he said, I don't create great football players. I create great men, right? And that stuck with me for my whole life. So my goal as a leader is to create great human beings that do really well. And then they have less obstacles in life, and they're able to really focus on the things they want to focus on personally and professionally.
Right.
One of the things that I think is important is having more of a routine around your life, and like a morning routine or a workout routine. Do you have things like that you're doing on a daily basis?
I am. So I'm blessed to have a wife and 2 beautiful children. So every morning I get up, me and my wife, we decide to do a little bit of a workout. And kids are up. I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. So roll the dice what time they're going to wake up or what mood they're going to be in. So sometimes you have to be a little bit more open to change, which is fine. And then start my work day probably right around 8 a.m. Go hard. I probably am glued to the computer basically from 8 to 5. And then from 5 to 6 every single day, I made an agreement with my wife that's going to be family time, because that was something really important to me growing up, was sitting down at the dinner table with your family uninterrupted. And then from 6 to say 7:30, maybe 8 o'clock, depending on scheduling, I'll take a couple more calls for the evening. Friday, I get done around 4. I think people check out at 4 o'clock on Fridays anyway. Sure. And I think I think in different stages of your career, you understand a little bit more of the mentality of people. I used to work a lot on Saturdays. I will do a Saturday every so often if a client needs it or whatnot. But I think Saturdays are fundamentally important for someone at least 1 to 7 years in thear career. It is a must. It is 100% a must. But, I think it's really regimented and being very focused on the calendar. Pretty much 90 some odd % of my meetings are Zoom meetings at this point. I had started doing Zoom a little bit prior to COVID. And I think that was what took this business to the next level. Yeah. It really did.
Well, and I think what's interesting is I teach advisors all day. I always say this, that COVID had so much bad, but it brought so much good when it got to the Zoom stuff. But what I've seen happen with a lot of advisors that I interact with is the elite went from seeing 20 people a week to possibly 40 over the last 4 years. But that's not going to happen again.
No.
Right? So you're not going to go from 40 to 80.
You can't.
Right? It's impossible.
I don't want to say impossible, but it's very challenging. I don't think you physically could unless you sacrifice something. And there's always a cost.
So the question really is, as a business owner and entrepreneur, and I think what you've done is taken on teaming and building more distribution than being a financial advisor.
Right.
That's the way you're going to grow going forward.
Right.
So as I wrap up a little bit here, what's next? What's when I look at you and your team, how are you thinking about let's just look at the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah. So I think the biggest challenging thing that we're working on right now is getting our older partners onto Salesforce. So that's a challenge we're working on right now, getting it more systematized. So that way, because time is one of the most important assets we all have or lack of. Okay. So we have to be conscientious of that. So that's a big project of ours, maybe hiring another staff person or two, building a couple additional juniors that can field some of these opportunities and getting them to be, we have to identify a few really solid, smart individuals to be able to grow with us. So once these 3 individuals or 4 individuals on my team transition out of the business in the next 5 to 10 years, however long that is, we need to be able to replace them with more capable people.
Which is really exciting when you think about that.
And scary.
Yeah.
Because, mentors, friends and people, but that's could be 5, 10 years from now too. So we just have to be prepared for that. And I think we're lucky where we're spending the time, effort to do that and teaching them a little bit of the business. And I would say my group is a little bit more different than a lot of the other teams, given the fact that we have this dynamic of older and younger.
Sure.
Where we've learned things that I don't think other teams will ever learn. And just because of that opportunity.
Well, because you have that institutional knowledge that's hard to replace that.
100%.
Yeah. So let me just ask one more question. You hit something when you talk about Salesforce and, the CRM aspects of it and the connection. I would say that you've always when you look at something as a practitioner, you dig in. You were a little late to the game.
Yep.
As your team on the CRM strategy.
Stubborn. You could say it. We were stubborn.
But that's okay.
Excel was our go-to.
Yeah. Yep. And now I feel like, it's interesting to hear you selling your veteran producers because you see the benefits of it. So how has that helped you as a team?
Think about it. It kind of sounds silly, but we were having this conversation about 2 weeks ago. How do we know how much business is coming in? Like if you were to ask me, which you do, how much business is coming in? Yeah. Joe Bogardus knows, but I don't know what my partners are. We talk about it. And we know that everyone's busy and money is obviously coming in and we're doing well, but how much money is coming in? Like we're not running it like a business. It needs to be run like a business, not to be like to the penny on everything. I'm not trying to be micromanaging, but like we should know on a fundamental basis what's coming in. So we think Salesforce is the tool. We hope it is. And from what I can tell, it's a great tool. Can it be improved? Sure. Yes. Anything can, but it gives us what we need. And, I'd like to know it helps on all facets from staff to partnership level to junior level. Like we can check how many dials a junior's doing, not to micromanage, but to
whatever you focus on gets better. And and I'm assuming that when you think of having 6 and 6, right, on the partners,
right,
I gotta believe the amount of the size of the book of business got to be 3, 4, 5, 6,000 households. And then you think about all the college planning, all those people going in. If you didn't have a tool to
we need more
all that data in one place, it would be impossible.
And it's crazy to manage. And it's crazy to give up opportunity because, we can then afford to bring in more people to be able to mine opportunities. Why not? Why not?
I think it's awesome. And I'm proud that you guys have embraced that. And,
and I want to say thank you to you, Paul, because you're like a father figure. You push us, you motivate us, and it's refreshing to be able to have someone to kind of give you a kick in the ass and, call you on that stuff. And,
and I don't give up. It takes a little while sometimes, or some people
bust their balls, which is good. That's what, that's what a true leader, you don't want to be the softy and, whatever.
So let's end on a last one. So I know that, and I don't have the details, but I know that you've taken really a bigger role, and your team has taken a bigger role in marketing yourself and getting you organized and using, different facets of marketing to brand yourself. You've been published a few times recently. It's like, what is the marketing? Like, let's end on that. What is your vision on what you're doing to build your team's brand and the marketing?
We're trying to come into the 21st century. So
you're not mechanics like your dad, right?
No. Even my dad, he does better at it. I mean, he's got like 200 plus Google reviews. His business is bigger than it's ever been. It's kind of interesting. So